The remote slipped from Elena's trembling hands as the face appeared on the screen. 20 years. 20 years since she'd woken one September morning to find the crib empty, the bedroom window ajar, and a silence so deafening it still echoed in her ears. The baby she'd held to her breast that very morning, who smelled of milk and powder, who had his father's blue eyes, he was there, on television, all grown up, a man, smiling at the cameras. The program was one of those documentaries about alternative communities, and he was being interviewed as one of the leaders of a sustainable farm in the Patagonia region. Long hair, a thick beard, but the eyes, God, the eyes were unmistakable. The same crescent moon-shaped birthmark on his left temple, the same way he tilted his head when concentrating. Elena knew every inch of that face because she'd spent 2 decades imagining what he'd look like at 23. Miguel Santos, read the caption on the screen. It wasn't Thomas anymore, the name she'd chosen with such love. Now it was Miguel, speaking fluent Spanish about organic farming and communal living. His hands, so much like his father's, gesturing passionately as he explained about heirloom seeds and permaculture. The apartment in Buenos Aires where Elena had lived for the past 10 years suddenly felt too small, the air too thin. She rushed to the bathroom and vomited, her hands gripping the sink edge as if she could hold on to reality. In the mirror, her reflection showed a 52-year-old woman, graying hair, deep lines around her eyes that hadn't slept properly in 2 decades. She called the television station. The operator was polite but firm. They couldn't provide information about the documentary participants. Elena insisted, explained it was an urgent family matter, lied that she was the young man's aunt. Nothing. She tried to find the program's producer online, sent desperate emails, called numbers that often didn't exist. 2 weeks later, a man knocked on her door. Tall, thin, wearing sunglasses despite it being night. He said he represented the interests of the community where Miguel lived and that he'd received her messages. Elena invited him in, her hands trembling as she served coffee. She booked a flight to Bariloche the next day. It didn't matter what it cost. It didn't matter what she found. 20 years was too long to live with a hole in her chest, to wake every morning wondering if her son was all right, if he felt cold, if someone hugged him when he cried. The flight was turbulent, but Elena barely noticed. She fixed her gaze on the window, watching the Andes Mountains approach like jagged teeth against the sky. She remembered when she was pregnant and dreamed of traveling with Thomas, showing him the world, teaching him about different cultures. She never imagined he would be the one living in a foreign land, speaking another language, raised by strangers. In Bariloche, she rented a car. The directions to Aurora Farm were vague, 30 kilometers down the main road, then a dirt track that snaked up the mountain. As she drove further from the city, the landscape became wilder, more isolated. Giant pine trees closed in on the road like a green cathedral, and the silence was broken only by the rumble of the engine and the erratic thumping of her heart. The farm appeared suddenly, a wide clearing where wooden houses were scattered seemingly at random. People worked in the fields, wearing simple, natural clothes. Children ran barefoot among the trees. It was all very beautiful, very perfect, and because of that, profoundly disturbing. Elena parked near what seemed to be the main house. A woman approached, smiling that same rehearsed smile she'd seen in the photos. Long hair, a white dress, bare feet. Beautiful, but with something empty in her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked in Spanish, her voice too melodic. "I'm looking for Miguel Santos," Elena said, trying to keep her voice steady. "I'm a distant relative." The woman tilted her head, studying her. "Miguel is in the fields, but perhaps it's better to speak first with Father Abraham. He coordinates our visits." Father Abraham. The name sent a shiver down Elena's spine. She followed the woman down a narrow path between the trees, noticing how other people stopped what they were doing to observe them. Men, women, children, all with those identical smiles, all dressed similarly, all seeming to step out of a postcard about simple living. Father Abraham's house stood in the center of the property, larger than the others, with wide verandas and windows that reflected the sunlight like eyes. Elena felt a chill as the door opened before she even knocked. "Elena," a familiar voice said. It was the man who had visited her apartment in Buenos Aires. "We were expecting you." "Expecting? Come in, please. We have much to discuss." The interior of the house was Spartan but comfortable. Dark wood, minimal furniture, a scent of incense and herbs that made Elena feel faint. The man, presumably Father Abraham, indicated a chair opposite a rustic table. "You know," he said, pouring tea into earthenware mugs, "it's no coincidence that you saw Miguel on television. Sometimes the universe conspires to bring people together who need to meet." Elena didn't touch the tea. "Where is my son?" "Your son has been dead for 20 years, he replied calmly. "What you saw was Miguel, a man who grew up here, who was raised by our family, who has no connection to your past pain." "You know who I am. You know what happened." Abraham smiled, and this time it wasn't the practiced smile of the others. It was something cold, calculating. "I know you lost a baby. I know the grief consumed you. I know you spent years searching, years suffering. And I know you need to accept that some things are irreversible. I want to see him." "That would be complicated. Miguel is about to get married. His fiancée is pregnant. They are happy. Do you really want to destroy that with fantasies of the past?" Elena stood, her legs trembling. "They aren't fantasies. He's my son. He has a birthmark." "Many people have birthmarks. Not like this. Not exactly like this." She pulled a faded photograph from her bag, the only one she had of baby Thomas. "Look, look, and tell me that's not him." Abraham took the photograph, studied it intently. His eyes hardened. Photographs can be deceiving, especially when we want to believe something very badly. "I don't need to believe. I know." "What if I told you you were right?" His voice changed, becoming lower, more dangerous. "What if I told you Miguel really is your son? What would you do?" Elena gasped. You would try to take him away. You would destroy the life he's built here. You would separate a family, traumatize a child about to be born. Would you do that because of a pain that only exists in your heart?"
He has a right to know the truth. Does he? Or do you need him to know? The question hit her like a punch. Elena sat down again, her hands trembling. For 20 years, she had imagined the moment she would find Thomas. She always imagined he would run into her arms, that they would remember each other, that they could rebuild what they had lost. She never considered that he could be happy without her. "Can I see him?" she whispered. "Just see him from afar." Abraham considered the question. "There's a celebration tonight, a union ritual between Miguel and his fiancée. You can observe, but you must not approach. You must not interfere. You need to accept that you are seeing a stranger, not your son." Elena agreed, though every fiber of her being screamed against the idea. She spent the rest of the day wandering the property, observing the life of the community. The people were polite but distant, always with those smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The children played silently, too disciplined to be normal. And there was an atmosphere of constant surveillance, as if everyone was always watching everyone else. An older woman with gray hair and deep wrinkles approached as Elena sat by a stream. "You're Miguel's mother, aren't you?" she asked softly, glancing around to make sure no one was nearby. Elena stared at her. "How do you know?" "Because I was a mother too, because I recognize the pain." The woman sat beside her. "My name is Carmen. I've been here 15 years. You also lost a child?" Carmen nodded. "Two, twins. They were 5 when they disappeared. I searched everywhere until someone told me they'd seen them here." When I arrived, they didn't recognize me. They weren't my children anymore. They were Abraham's, the community. Where are they now? Grown, married, with children of their own. Carmen wiped away a tear. Sometimes they greet me as if I were a polite stranger. Sometimes I think I see a flicker of recognition in their eyes, but it disappears so quickly I think it's my imagination. Elena felt her chest tighten. Why did you stay? Where else would I go? They are my family, even if they don't know it, even if they never knew. Carmen looked at her intently. Don't make the same mistake I did. Don't lose yourself here. Take your son away before it's too late. Abraham said it would be cruel. Abraham lies. He always has. He collects lost children, children of desperate people, and builds his own version of a family. But it's not love, Elena. It's possession. Before Elena could respond, voices approached. Carmen quickly stood, her face assuming that neutral expression Elena had seen on everyone else. I have to go, she murmured. But remember, you came here out of love. Don't let them turn that love into guilt. Night fell over the farm like a heavy curtain. Elena was led to an area where torches burned in a circle, illuminating focused faces. There must have been 50 people, all dressed in white, all in reverent silence. And then she saw him. Miguel emerged from the shadows like a vision, tall, strong, wearing a white robe that contrasted with his tan skin. Elena had to lean against a tree to keep from falling. It was him. It was definitely him. Every line of his face, every gesture, every expression, everything confirmed what her heart already knew. Abraham began to speak, a mixture of Spanish and some dialect Elena didn't recognize. He spoke of family, of belonging, of bonds that transcended blood. And Elena realized it wasn't just a wedding, it was an initiation ceremony, a way to bind Miguel even more deeply to the community. During the ceremony, their eyes met. It was just a second, but Elena saw something there. Confusion, recognition, a flicker of something he didn't understand himself. Miguel frowned, as if trying to recall a long-forgotten dream. After the ceremony, as people began to disperse, Elena noticed Carmen discreetly approaching. "Did you see that little building over there?" she whispered, pointing to a small structure set apart from the others. "That's where they keep the archives, birth certificates, documents. Maybe you'll find answers there." Elena waited until everyone was asleep. The silent farm had a sinister quality, as if the trees themselves were watching. She managed to open the archive building's door with a hairpin, a skill she'd honed during the desperate years after Thomas disappeared, when she investigated every lead, every possibility. The interior was filled with meticulously organized file cabinets. Elena searched the S section, Santos. There were dozens of folders, scores of stories. Children who had arrived as orphans, who had been rescued from difficult situations, who had been adopted by the community. Miguel's file was at the back. Elena opened it with trembling hands, and her suspicion was confirmed. Date of birth, September 15th, 2001. Place, Buenos Aires. Original name, Thomas Elena Rodriguez. There were photos, baby pictures of Thomas, pictures Elena recognized because she had taken them herself. There were medical records, birth certificates, and a letter. A letter written by Elena herself, addressed to anyone who might have information about her missing son. Looking for something specific? Elena whirled around, her heart pounding. Abraham stood in the doorway, no longer the calm, controlled man she had known. His eyes glittered with something dangerous. "He's my son," Elena said, clutching the folder to her chest. "He's always been my son." "And you think that matters now, after 20 years? It matters to me, and it will matter to him." Abraham laughed, a humorless sound. "You don't understand, do you? Miguel isn't just part of our family, he's essential. He's the future leader of this community. I can't let you destroy that." "I'm not going to destroy anything. I just want him to know the truth." "The truth? The truth is, you were a careless mother who left a window open. The truth is, your son thrived without you. The truth is, he has a life here, a family here, and you're just a ghost from the past." Abraham's words were like knives, but Elena stood firm. He has the right to choose. He doesn't, because I won't let him. Abraham stepped closer, and Elena saw he held a syringe. You know, other mothers have come here, other desperate women looking for sons who no longer exist. Some accepted reality. Others needed help accepting it. Elena ran. She fled the archive building, still clutching the folder, Abraham hot on her heels. The farm that had seemed so peaceful during the day now revealed itself as a labyrinth of shadows and danger. Elena ran through the trees, tripping over roots, scratching her face on low branches. She reached the house where Miguel lived. She pounded on the door frantically, screaming his name.
When the door opened, he stood there, bewildered, wearing only sleep shorts. "Please," she gasped, thrusting the folder at him. "Look at this. Just look at this." Miguel took the folder, frowning. When he saw the pictures, his expression shifted. Confusion, recognition, something that might have been pain. I dream of this woman," he said slowly, pointing to a picture of Elena holding baby Thomas. "I've always dreamt of her. I never knew why." "Because I'm your mother," Elena whispered. "Your name is Thomas. You were taken from me when you were 6 months old." Miguel looked at her, really looked, and Elena saw the exact moment something inside him broke and reformed. She saw recognition, pain, anger, and love mingling in his eyes. "My God," he murmured, "my God, it's true." That's when Abraham arrived, no longer alone. He had 5 men with him, all large, all with the same vacant stare of the other community members. "Miguel," Abraham said, his voice calm again, "this woman is trying to destroy our family. You can't let her plant seeds of doubt in your mind." "They're not doubts," Miguel replied, his voice growing stronger. "They're memories, memories you tried to erase." "You don't understand what you're saying. This woman abandoned you. We saved you." "You stole me." The tension in the air was palpable. Elena could sense Abraham losing control, that the situation was becoming dangerous. But she could also see that Miguel was remembering, that 20 years of conditioning were being dismantled in a matter of minutes. "We need to go," she said to Miguel, "now." "He's not going anywhere," Abraham declared, "and neither are you." Then Carmen appeared, not alone. A dozen people were with her, men and women Elena recognized as community members. But their faces no longer held those practiced smiles. They had determination, anger, freedom, and love. "It's over," Abraham said. "It's over with the lies. It's over with the stolen children. It's over with the destroyed families." What followed was chaotic. Abraham's men tried to surround Elena and Miguel, but the other community members, revealing themselves not as blind followers but as prisoners who had finally found the courage to rebel, intervened. Elena saw Miguel fight men who had been his brothers for 20 years. She saw Carmen confront Abraham with decades of pent-up rage. She saw the perfect farm transform into a battleground where painful truths were finally coming to light. "Run," Miguel shouted to her, blocking the path of 2 men trying to reach her. "Get to the car." Elena hesitated. After 20 years, she didn't want to leave her son again. "Go," he insisted. "I'll follow you." Elena raced to the car, her hands shaking so badly she could barely get the key in the ignition. She could hear shouting behind her, the sounds of a struggle, sirens in the distance. Someone had called the police. Finally, she managed to start the engine, and Miguel came running, followed by Carmen and several others. He tumbled into the car, breathless, a cut on his lip. "His wife?" Elena asked. "She's safe. She knew too, about the stolen children, about everything. She was waiting for a chance to get out." As they drove down the dark road, Elena felt as if she were in a dream. 20 years of searching, of pain, of sleepless nights had ended in this surreal way. "I remember," Miguel said softly, looking out the window. "Not everything, but I remember you singing a song about stars. 'Twinkle, twinkle, little star,
How I wonder what you are, he finished, his voice choked with emotion. They drove in silence for a while, absorbing the enormity of what had happened. Elena knew it wouldn't be easy. Miguel had a life, a wife, a child on the way. She couldn't simply reclaim the lost 20 years. But she also knew that something had been healed that night. The hole in her chest, which had ached for 2 decades, was finally beginning to close. What happens now? Miguel asked. I don't know, Elena answered honestly. Maybe we figure it out together. By the time they reached town, the sun was rising. Elena pulled over in a small plaza where children played and parents watched with genuine smiles, not the practiced smiles of the farm. Miguel looked at her, and Elena saw in his eyes not only the man he had become, but also the baby she had lost. She saw all the possibilities the future might hold. Complicated, difficult, but real. Mom, he said, and the word sounded like a prayer. Elena hugged him, feeling the weight of years dissolving. She didn't know if they would be able to build a normal relationship, if Miguel could integrate 2 decades of separate life with the truth about his origins. She didn't know if his wife would accept Elena as part of the family, if the child that was to be born would know the grandmother who had searched for her for so long. But she knew she had her son back. Not the baby she had lost, but the man he had become. And maybe that was enough. Maybe that was everything. The story of Elena and Miguel would spread through the news in the following weeks. The farm would be investigated, Abraham would be arrested, dozens of families would reunite after decades apart. But in that moment, in the small plaza with the rising sun, there was only a mother and a son discovering each other again. Elena held Miguel's face in her hands, memorizing every detail. 20 years of searching had ended, but the rest of their lives were just beginning. I never gave up, she whispered. I know, he replied. Somewhere inside me, I always knew you would find me. And maybe, Elena thought, that's the truth about the love between a mother and a son. It transcends time, distance, and even memory. It waits, patiently, until the time comes to reveal it once again. The morning stretched before them, full of possibilities and uncertainties. But they would face it together, as it should have always been.